Hi there, I'm Christian Newman from Rise Digital, where we make companies more productive with Google Workspace. And I couldn't be more excited than to be here with you today to share with you the top 21 updates of 2021 for Google Workspace. And as it goes every single year, Google Workspace had an absolutely incredible year with well over 300 updates that were posted to all the applications across Google Workspace. And it just made for such an exciting year. And at the end of each year, I wrap up the top updates of the year to share with you, to give you a perspective on how we've moved productivity and security forward using Google Workspace in 2021. So without further ado, let me jump right into the top 21 updates of 2021 with you today. And the first one is marketplace improvements. Google Workspace has this marketplace called Google Workspace Marketplace, where you can get access to add-ons of third-party applications that plug right into applications like Gmail, Drive, Docs, and others throughout the Google Workspace ecosystem. And this year, we saw some major improvements to the marketplace experience, where there's an approved for you section where your administrator can pre-approve applications for use in your organization, and you can discover those under the Approve for Use section. There's also more info available to administrators when they're making decisions around which marketplace applications they'll allow to be used with their organization's data. And thirdly, administrators now have the ability to install Google Workspace Marketplace applications by group. Previously, this was quite limited by organizational unit. And so by being able to install applications by group, it just makes it so much more flexible. And the next one on the list, number 20, is the ability to consolidate accounts. And I know what you're thinking. This is not exactly the feature that we've all been waiting for, at least us administrators. But it is a step in the right direction. So I think I wanted to mention it on this list here today. What we gained in 2021 was the ability to perform a domain takeover for Google Workspace Essentials domains. So as long as both of the organizations are using Google Workspace Essentials, they can be brought together seamlessly with the click of a button, basically, in order to consolidate those accounts. And previously, that required a lot of work to transfer over the users, migrate all of the data, the email history, everything like that. It was a lot of work for administrators, but this is a sign that Google is building the capabilities to more seamlessly and programmatically consolidate multiple accounts. And I'm hopeful that we'll see this extended to additional Google Workspace editions in the future. Number 19, groups management improvements. So groups are a great way of organizing your Google Workspace environment in order to provide security access to certain applications or features or functionality, but also to be able to share files and very easily communicate with more than one user at a time. And so groups are a very powerful part of how Google Workspace works. And this year, we saw some substantial improvements in how groups can be managed. Most notably, of course, is the ability to have dynamic groups, which can automatically assign membership to various users based on some sort of criteria, like a keyword in their job title or the department that they work with, or something like that. And so dynamic groups make it much easier for administrators to not have to manually remove somebody from one group, add them to another as their position within the company changes. There's also the ability to set group membership expiry. So if somebody is working on a particular project for a finite period of time, you might want to add them to the group associated with that project so that they can access calendar resources or shared drives or some other resources or functionality. But then as their involvement in that project winds down, you want to remove them from that. It could be somebody who's filling in for somebody temporarily or some other scenario similar to that. And so group membership expiry, also inspecting groups. So one of the things about groups in Google Workspace is the ability for a group to be a member of a group. And so previously, it was not necessarily crystal clear who are the individual members of a group if they were a member of a group that was a member of that group, if you're following what I'm saying. I know it can be quite complicated, but inspect groups gives you the ability to see through those subgroups and drill right down to who are the individual members of a particular group, including those who may be members of subgroups who are members. And then the last one is security groups. In other words, the ability to create groups that are solely for the purpose of assigning security parameters or access. Next on the list, and I love this one, I was so excited about this one, is the new admin console experience. And if there's one thing that you've noticed with some of the items that are on my list, some of the items on the list encompass multiple updates, right? So multiple updates throughout the year come together to create a compelling new experience. And groups management was just one such example, but this is yet another one where we saw several improvements to the Google Workspace admin console throughout the course of the year. But they all came together to create this much more streamlined and efficient experience for Google Workspace administrators. And some of the things that I think about with regards to this update is the expandable menu, which you can see here in the screenshot down the left-hand side, which makes it so easy to navigate from one part of the admin console to another. Homepage cards, which you see across the top there for users, billings, domains, and some other functions. And that calls your attention to specific frequently used sections of the Google Workspace admin console. And of course, those can be collapsed and moved out of the way if you don't need to expand them. There's also product update cards. And if anybody knows me, they know that I'm a big fan of the frequent updates that Google Workspace receives throughout the year. And one thing that was missing was the ability to have visibility into those updates by administrators. If they didn't follow the blog or they weren't reviewing their emails frequently and seeing those product updates come from Google, they would have missed those. But now they're right here in the top right of the admin console in the product update section, and I'm all for that. Next is alert cards. So again, another card where you can see the most recent alerts that have been flagged within your admin console. Things like password policies, things like suspicious messages that have been reported and so forth. They will, the most recent ones will appear there right before your very eyes as soon as you sign into the admin console. There's a new rules page that makes it easier than ever to discover and configure security rules so that you can be alerted of situations that you may be of concern with regards to your Google Workspace environment. And lastly, a new security menu, which I probably should have expanded that one in the screenshot. But believe me, when you go into the security menu, there is a much more organized hierarchy of the various configurations or parameters that you can set, whether you're talking about password policies, two-step verification policies, or different levels of access. So all of these come together to create a much more compelling new admin console experience, which, by the way, works so much better on mobile than it ever has in the past as well. So it's not just about the experience on the desktop, on the web, like you see in the screenshot here. Next, a more flexible Google Voice. And one thing that I was so excited to see this year, thank you, Google, very much, is number portability availability in Canada. So now you can port numbers in Canada into Google Voice from other service providers, and I'm so happy to see that. Next, the ability to set incoming call rules, right? So have certain calls that come into your Google Voice account handled in different ways, depending on who's calling. Are they a member of your contacts, et cetera, et cetera. So it just makes it so much more flexible for Google Voice users to be able to create more streamlined workflows and manage their calls. Next, custom auto attendant audio prompts. So previously in Google Voice, companies have always had the ability to use text to speech in order to have custom prompts in their auto attendants. And now within Google Voice, they have the ability to record and upload a custom audio file in place of those text to speech prompts. So it can just make it a little bit more personal and relatable when you're able to be the voice of your brand rather than the text to speech algorithm that is built into Google Voice. So I love that. Fixed order ring groups, again, just making ring groups a lot more flexible in terms of how those calls can be routed to the various members of the ring group. Being able to set a fixed order, person A, then person B, then person D, then person Z, then person C, just makes it a lot more flexible for companies, again, to manage the calls that they receive the way they want to manage them. And those ring groups have more ring duration options now than they ever did before. Whereas previously there were only a couple of choices. Now there's a whole bunch of different choices in terms of how long those ring group incoming calls can ring for before defaulting to the unanswered call behavior that is set. So a lot more flexible Google Voice. Next, a new contacts and sidebar experience. So Google Contacts, well, it's not technically a Google Workspace core service. It is something that Google Workspace users interact with every single day, right? People are at the center of our everyday workflows, and it's really important that we have access to timely, relevant information about people that we're working with. And so the new contacts experience does just that for us. It provides us visibility into the org chart within the organization, the department and title of the person who you're interacting with, whoever that person's direct reports are, so the people that they work with. And even if it's not a direct report or a manager relationship, that you can have visibility into that within Google Contacts as well. Shared files. So what files have you interacted with that person? What recent meetings and email conversations have both of you been involved in? And what is that person's local time and working hours? So again, all of this comes together to provide you a much richer view into the people that you're working with every single day. And that exists in the Google Contacts interface, which you see here in the screenshot, but also to a degree in the sidebar application that appears within Gmail as well. Next, autosave Google Forms progress. So I love this. There's nothing more frustrating than beginning a Google form, particularly an extended one with multiple sections or pages, and not being able to complete it right away, and having to come back to it later only to discover that your browser has refreshed or your computer downloaded an update and needed to restart or something like that, or you just close the tab down unintentionally. Now, Google Forms will save progress for up to 30 days from the last time that you had edited the form. So within 30 days, you can come back, you can finish the form that you started and submit it. Once you submit it, if you go back to it, it will start a new one. But you won't lose your work ever again. You'll be able to pick up right where you left off and complete the rest of the form. And also this works too for quizzes. So for all my friends that work with Google Workspace for Education, this works just fine for quizzes that students might want to complete in multiple settings. Next is search chips. And we see search chips permeating all of Google Workspace. It started in Gmail, I think it was last year actually, where search chips first surfaced there. which makes it so much easier to filter down the search results that you'll receive after you enter some sort of keywords into the search bar. You'll get a list, but then you might want to filter that out depending on what file type it is, who that file is owned by or was shared with, when it was last modified, and if there are any tasks or suggestions relating to that document that need your attention, right? So these functionality all exist now within Google Drive. It's in beta though, so not everybody has access to it, but the update was announced. I have been using it for some time and thoroughly enjoy having this functionality, which is, again, familiar from having access to it in Gmail and chat. I just welcome this experience in Google Drive. It also brings more consistency across the Google Workspace ecosystem. Next is Google Drive for desktop. So there was so much confusion before where Google Drive had multiple desktop applications. There was the backup and sync application, and there was the Drive file stream application. And I would constantly get questions from clients asking, what is the difference? Should I get one? Should I get the other? Should I get both? Well, now that question has been answered because Google has gone and unified those two tools into one client called Google Drive for Desktop that gives you all of the functionality you need to access files that are in your Google Drive from your desktop environment. And while there are security concerns and things like that that you need to consider before you decide to install and activate Google Drive for Desktop, for those use cases where it does make sense, this is a much more streamlined and fun user experience for people who are using this functionality. Next, Google Drive labels. I love this feature so much because this makes it so much easier to classify the relative sensitivity of documents and ensure compliance around how it's shared or isn't shared or printed or forwarded or anything like that. Google Drive labels just makes it so much easier to set those levels of file sensitivity. And you can see here some examples in the screenshot, and then be able to bring awareness to users who are interacting with those documents around whether it's sensitive or not, and how they can or should not be sharing that with others. There's also the ability within the Google Drive labels functionality to set automatic classification. So this can be based on certain keywords or types of sensitive content that might be contained within the document. And this also integrates really nicely with data loss prevention, which of course can look into those documents and detect different types of keywords or pieces of personally identifiable or sensitive information, and prevent it from being shared. And so with Google Drive labels, it all integrates very nicely to make sure that you retain control of your most sensitive data. Next, create meeting notes. So this is great. So in Google Calendar, we now have the ability to, within one click, generate a document that pre-populates with the date, the name of the event, actually the smart chip of the event, people chips for everybody who's attending the event, and a pre-formatted notes and action items section. So within one click, you can create a meeting notes document and begin your meeting with ease, right? There's no such thing anymore as creating your own template and then going and having to create a copy of that template in order to take meeting notes in Google Docs. You can now simply click on Take Meeting Notes anytime you're attending an event that has multiple participants. That link will show up for you. And so Create Meeting Notes is a very convenient one-step solution to be able to do what previously was very cumbersome. Next, lots of features came to Google Calendar this year to enhance people's work-life balance. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen work-life balance shift all over the map. And it's been harder and harder for people with multiple Google Meet meetings all day long, working from home, having flexible work schedules, flexible locations in this hybrid work environment that we now find ourselves in. And people needed some way to bring sense to their new workflow. And so Google Workspace has added a number of new features to make it so much easier to establish some semblance of work-life balance using Google Calendar. Things like focus time that allow you to set aside time within your calendar in order to focus on the important work that you need to get done. This is focused individual work that you can set aside. That when you set aside that time, you can optionally have it automatically decline meetings as if you were out of office because you're getting the important work done. So focus time is really cool. Time Insights gives you visibility into how much time you're spending on focus time versus in small meetings or large meetings. And when you're in meetings, who is it that you're working with? Who is it that you're meeting with? I'm sorry. And are there people that you perhaps should be keeping in touch with, but you're not? And so Time Insights just brings all of these insights to you to make sure that you can use the most efficient use of your time possible. Work location, which gives people insight into your context. Are you working from home? Are you working from the office? Are you working from some other location on a particular day? You can give your coworkers visibility into that using the new work location function, as well as organize your own routine. Next is split working hours, which gives you the ability to split your working hours throughout the day. So perhaps you start in the morning from 7 till 11 o'clock, and then you take an hour for lunch when you're always out of office, or maybe taking the dog for a walk or taking care of some household chores or something like that. And then you resume your day after that hour until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So this is a very conventional schedule, but we do recognize that with these new flexible working hours and hybrid work environments, people's schedules vary, right? And the more visibility we can give to others into when people are available to work with us and when they're not, the more effective and efficiently we can all work together. And so split working hours is yet another feature that does just that. And then lastly, virtual or in-person RSVP for meetings. This just gives you the ability to RSVP to a meeting by telling somebody, hey, I'm going to be attending in person in that meeting room, or no, I'm going to be attending via Google Meet virtually, right? Again, it just gives more visibility to your coworkers and to one another into what are your contexts and how can they expect to interact with you at any given event. Right. So I love this. Just makes it so much easier with all of these features to establish some semblance of work-life balance and share that with the people who you work with. Next, we have a new Google Chat experience, and I absolutely love it. The experience that you see in the screenshot here is where we're going. Not all of these features have landed just yet, but this is where we are going with Google Chat. This year, we saw the introduction of chat spaces. What was formerly rooms is a new refreshed collaborative environment called spaces where we can all work together. We can chat, we can assign tasks, we can work on files, we can even edit and collaborate on them in real time within the chat interface using the new Docs, Sheets, and Slides editing function, which is embedded right into Google Chat. We can set custom statuses. So again, just giving our coworkers greater visibility into what is our context and are we available to work with them? And if not, what are we doing instead? Are we in a meeting? Are we going for a run? Are we commuting to the office? Are we on vacation? The custom status in Google Chat just gives greater visibility into your circumstances so that it makes it easier for others to work with you and for you to work with them. We have more inclusive emojis, and I'm a big fan of anything that makes the work environment a better reflection of the reality within we work in the world. And inclusive emojis have bring different genders and different skin tones and things like that into the mix in order to make it so much easier to accurately communicate our own situation, our own feelings, our own emotions, right? GIFs do that as well in a much more fun and sometimes colorful way. GIFs just make it so much easier to express ourselves. And I'm a big fan of using GIFs. They're kind of fun, and sometimes they can say for us what we don't quite know how to say in words, right? And so GIFs, love having GIFs embedded right into Google Chat. And while there used to be a Giphy bot before, it was all right. It wasn't the greatest experience, but now having that embedded GIF function is just so much easier. And also the new interface. As you can see here, it looks beautiful. It's well organized. It's easy to work in. Again, works right in Gmail if you want it as well. And we also gained a progressive web app for Google Chat this year too, which brings one more option to people in terms of how they want to interact with Google Chat. Soon, as you can see in the screenshot here, we'll receive some more updates for text formatting. You see the little A icon down in the bottom, which gives us a hint that there may be text formatting functions on the way. And threaded replies, which you see over on the right-hand side, which has been discussed in a few different Google announcements over the year, and is something that we can all look forward to, and more. There's lots more coming to the new chat experience. Next, Google Meet just got kicked up a huge notch this year. and I can't believe I'm saying that, because in 2020, it went from, doing a great job at the basics of remote or virtual meeting and collaboration to a great experience by the end of 2020. But in 2021, Google just took it to the next level, and they did a number of things. And the next, I don't know how many there are, 5 or 6 updates that I'm going to share with you today are all about Google Meet and how much more powerful and flexible and streamlined it's become over the course of the year. And the first one here is better breakout rooms, where we now have the ability to organize breakout rooms in advance in Google Calendar before we even join the meeting. And it just makes it so much easier for meeting organizers to be able to do that in advance. The next one is auto transferring breakout room participants back to the original meeting after the breakout room sessions have ended. Previously, there were always people seemingly that got left behind in one of the breakout rooms that for whatever reason never made it back into the main meeting. Well, that's a thing of the past, because now they'll be automatically transferred into the main meeting to join everybody else after the breakout room sessions have ended. Next, live translated captions. And I'm so excited about this one. As I said, I'm a huge fan of anything that makes meetings or Google Workspace more inclusive. And that is exactly what live translated captions is all about. And, you might be thinking, well, I don't work that often with people overseas who don't speak English or French or whatever is the normal course of the normal business language that you use every day. But recognize this, that there are a lot of people out there with whom we are working every day, maybe in English or French or whatever language your business uses most. However, that may not be their first language. They might be more comfortable working or thinking or communicating in their native language, which could be French, German, Spanish, or Portuguese. And having the ability to have captions translated for them of perhaps your English meeting live and in real time into their native language as the meeting is taking place just gives them one more way in which they can consume the content and be able to better contribute to the meeting themselves. And while this feature has just been announced this year. It's not available for every single language yet. It's only for meetings in English which can be translated to French, German, Spanish, or Portuguese. However, as anything with Google goes, we will inevitably see expansion of this in the future to include translation of meetings in those languages into English or one another, and adding other languages to the list as well. Spanish, sorry, that's already on the list. Chinese, Japanese, Korean, who knows what else we'll see added down the line. But I'm super excited to see this core functionality existing and working within Google Workspace. Next, moderator controls. So if you've ever hosted a class or a large meeting, you will know that it can be sometimes challenging to create the experience that you want to create. And moderator controls make it that much easier by allowing the moderator or the meeting organizer, in other words, to lock out audio and video of participants during certain portions of the meeting so that they cannot turn on their microphone or their camera. Limit screen sharing, so controlling the ability for people to go into presenter mode. Ending meeting for all, so that after the meeting is ended, it's ended for everybody. People cannot just hang around and continue chatting. The ability to have multiple hosts as well. As the meeting organizer who's facilitating an event, they may or may not have the bandwidth to be able to manage all of these features while they're presenting material or interacting with their audience or leading them through some sort of a conversation or journey. And so having the ability to assign multiple hosts make sure that other people can support the meeting organizer in running the meeting as well. Quick access, which makes it easy for people who are invited to the meeting to join automatically without having to request it. And the moderator or meeting organizer has the ability to turn quick access on and off. And by the way, the administrators can set what is the default for quick access. So is it on by default or off by default? And the ability to mute everybody all at once within a single click is another moderator control that we gained this year. And all of these come together to make it so much easier to run more efficient and effective meetings. Yes, large meetings in particular, but also large events, public events sometimes, which I've been a member of in the past before these functionality existed. And I always thought, oh, if only I could mute everybody all at once, or if only I could limit the times at which they can turn on their microphone during the Q&A section, or the video during the Q&A section or discussion section of the meeting. Now, these functionalities do exist. A better hand-raising experience. So I love the hand-raising functionality in Google Meet. It is second to none, but this year, Google Workspace made it even better with a new visual icon and animation, which you see down in the bottom left, which makes it really easy for people to know exactly who's raised their hand. Automatic tile placement, so that perhaps if you've got a large meeting with over 49 participants and participant number 51 raises their hand, that person may not be featured on the screen at the time. They may not have a tile. They may be in the people menu. But if they raise their hand, what it will do is Google Meet will automatically place their tile on the main screen so that people can see them and interact with them when inevitably it becomes their turn to speak. A new audio notification, which is subtle yet noticeable. I love it. An ordered queue where the organizer, or anybody else for that matter involved in the meeting, can see an ordered list of who has raised their hand. So everybody always knows who is next. Automatic lowering. This is a lifesaver because previously, if somebody raised their hand and then spoke, sometimes they would forget to lower their hand and their hand would remain raised. Now, their hand will automatically be lowered after they've had their chance to speak, and just makes the meeting so much more streamlined. And lastly, Google Meet hardware now supports the hand-raising experience. So if you have a meeting room with Google Meet hardware installed, you can make full use of the hand-raising functionality within Google Meet. Next, audio and video improvements. So anything that makes meetings more inclusive, again, I absolutely love. And while this may seem like bells and whistles, I believe that this makes meetings so much more inclusive and makes it so much easier for people to express themselves authentically, using different things like different backgrounds and styles and things like that. And this year we gained the ability to set video backgrounds, which are fun and, like I said, can express those individuals' personality or maybe even their company's brand. So we have video backgrounds. We also have the ability to set backgrounds on mobile, which we didn't have in the past. We have new immersive backgrounds and styles. We have administrator background controls where administrators can turn on and off the ability to change backgrounds, and even preload pre-approved backgrounds for people to use. We have improved low light visibility, as you can see on the demonstration here. People are in all sorts of different lighting situations when we're in this hybrid work environment, whether they're at home or in a coffee shop or in the office or somewhere in between. The lighting environments will vary dramatically, and having Google Meet be able to automatically adjust for low lighting makes everybody appear so much better in the Google Meet window. And so you never have this situation anymore where some people are much more bright and vibrant than others. This just kind of levels the playing field and makes it so much easier to see and enjoy everybody who's involved in the meeting. There's a new effects side panel now that we have so many different options for the look and feel of our Google Meet tile. You can now access all of those different settings, whether it's changing your background, setting different different styles for the lighting and things like that, all within the effects panel in the settings menu. Noise cancellation, which previously was available only on Google Workspace Enterprise Plus, has now come to so many more editions. And again, this just provides a much better audio experience by filtering out background noise that is not related to speech, so that people can hear each other, quite frankly, within Google Meet meetings. It just makes it so much easier to hear and understand the people that you're interacting with. And the ability to see more video feeds too, so we can see more people at a single time. Next, we gained a whole new Google Meet experience this year, including the ability to unpin shared content, which you see here in the demonstration where the presentation gets minimized so you can see more people on the screen. This is very useful when it comes time for the Q&A section, but is always available to participants within Google Meet. The ability to resize or move or even hide your own video feed is something that I use all the time and thoroughly enjoy, because I don't need to see myself. I look at myself in the very beginning to make sure that my my video is functioning and my lighting is good. But after that, I want to see the people that I'm meeting with. And so the ability to minimize or move around my video tile has been a game changer for me. Highlighted speaker outlined in blue, you'll see there on the tiles, just makes it so much easier to visually see who is speaking at the time. A much more subtle mute indicator for people's tiles in Google Meet. Consolidated controls all at the bottom of the screen, and a persistent bottom bar, which is always visible at the bottom of Google Meet, whereas previously you had to hover over it for it to appear sometimes. And we also have a Google Meet progressive web application, which allows Google Meet to exist not as a tab in Chrome as it would by default, but in its own environment as if it was a different application on your device. So lots of new functionality that came into Google Meet this year. And I cannot believe how much more powerful and flexible and streamlined the experience has become in 2021. Next, document approvals. Number 2 on the list. We're getting there. We're almost done. But number 2 on the list is document approvals. So this has been a requested feature for many years, ever since I first got involved with Google Workspace years and years ago. But now it is available. And so document approvals allows you to assign one or multiple approvers to a given document, so that that document can be approved before it's sent or shared more broadly. And so approvals allows you to assign approvers who would then receive a notification and then can review the document, and they can approve or reject it. They can add comments or they can edit it. And once they've made changes or comments, then it goes back for another round of approvals. But once it's finally approved by all of the approvers, the file becomes locked in order to maintain its integrity and cannot be edited by anybody after that fact. If ever it needs to be edited again, it needs to be unlocked and therefore unapproved, and then seek approval again before it can be shared. So document approvals is an absolutely awesome feature that creates a workflow that organizations were mimicking outside of Google Workspace without great consistency or control. It brings it all right into Google Docs, Sheets, or Slides, and makes it accessible to absolutely everyone. And finally, number one on the list. And while we haven't seen the all of the benefits of this feature or update quite yet, this is a game changer because it fundamentally changes how Google Docs works, and that is Smart Canvas. Smart Canvas is the new rendering engine, which enables so much more flexible and powerful experiences within Google Docs. And we saw that beginning earlier this year, where we've had some functionality added already around the ability to create smart ships, which allow you to hover over and get quick previews of things like people, documents, files, and events and websites, all within the Google Docs environment. Just make it so much more dynamic and contextual using smart ships. And I love that feature, which is enabled by this new Smart Canvas rendering platform that Google Workspace is using for Google Docs. The next one is @shortcuts, where you can use the key in order to access templates or smart ships or different pieces of preset content very easily and quickly, rather than having to create it from scratch yourself or type in text and create a hyperlink. The @shortcuts just makes it so much easier to create the document that you want so that you can focus on its content and not necessarily its format or structure, and also bring smart content into it without having to manually link to it. Image layering and watermarks, so a lot more complex and refined document styling options that are made possible by Smart Canvas. Interactive tables, which you can see here in the demonstration here, where we have a voting button, which isn't available yet, but should be coming in the future. And the ability to assign action items using Google Tasks, which is something that we're all looking forward to as well. We're going to see some other functionality like pageless format, which does away with that past paper-based paradigm that we've been living in. We have all of these digital documents that don't necessarily need to be paginated. And if we can have a more pageless format where we can make full use of the canvas in front of us, that obviously has benefits to the documents that we create. Like I said here, the voting buttons, emoji reaction, assignable tasks, and so much more will be made possible by Smart Canvas. And we've only just seen the very beginning of what Smart Canvas can do for us in Google Docs. And so that's why I made this number one on the list of the top updates of 2021. So that's it for our list. I know that it was a long list. Thank you for staying with me. I would love to hear from you and get your comments around some of the items that we listed, but maybe some of the items that we didn't list. What did we miss on the list? What has moved productivity or security forward most for you in 2021 that you would add to this list that we perhaps didn't? And what are you looking forward to in 2022? What do you want to see from Google Workspace? What do you hope that this time next year I'm going to be talking about when I create this video? I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, thank you very much. Have a happy new year. And to all the Google Workspacers out there, I look forward to working with you more this year.